The building looked like it did not belong to the city around it. Tall glass walls rose high into the sky, reflecting soft golden lights from inside. From the outside, it felt cold and distant. From the inside, it felt rich and untouchable. Everything was clean. Everything was calm. Everything was expensive. This was the kind of place where even silence felt like it had value. Inside the hall, people moved slowly, as if there was no need to rush. They wore fine clothes that fit perfectly. Their shoes barely made a sound on the polished floor. Their smiles were gentle, but careful. Their voices stayed low, never rising too much. Even laughter sounded controlled, like it had learned rules before entering the room. This was a place where powerful people felt safe, a place where money spoke quietly, but clearly. Near one corner of the hall stood a girl who did not belong to this picture. She stood still, close to the wall, trying to make herself small. Her dress was simple and faded. It was clean, but it had clearly lived many days before this one. The fabric was thin in some places. The color was not bright anymore. Her shoes had small cracks near the sides, but they were polished with care. She had cleaned them just before coming, hoping they would look better under the lights. Her hands were folded in front of her. Her back was straight, but not proud. Her eyes stayed lowered, not out of fear, but habit. Life had taught her early that drawing attention could invite trouble. Quiet was safer. Invisible was better. She was not a guest. She was only there to help. Someone she trusted had asked her to assist for the evening. Just simple tasks. Carrying trays, wiping surfaces, moving quietly from one place to another. She had agreed without thinking twice. She always did. Work was work. Honest work mattered. Complaining never changed anything. Soft music played in the background, floating gently through the hall. It sounded pleasant, but no one truly listened. It was not meant to be heard. It was just there to fill empty air, like decoration made of sound. At the center of the hall stood a large, black piano. It was impossible to miss. Its surface shined under the warm lights. Every edge looked smooth and perfect. It stood proudly, untouched, like it was waiting for someone important. No one had played it all evening. It was not there for music. It was there to show taste, wealth, and class. As the girl passed by carrying a tray, her eyes moved toward the piano without her meaning to. She slowed just a little. Her gaze rested on the keys, white and black, calm and patient. For a brief moment, her face softened, then she looked away. That piano belonged to another world, not hers. Suddenly the feeling in the room changed. Voices dropped, even lower. Conversation slowed. Smiles became tight and careful. People straightened their shoulders without thinking. The air itself seemed to pause. Someone important had arrived. The billionaire entered the hall without hurry. He did not need to rush. The room waited for him. His presence filled the space before he said a single word. His suit fit him perfectly, as if it had been made only for this moment. His watch caught the light every time he moved his hand, quietly reminding everyone who he was. People turned toward him. Some smiled too quickly. Some nodded with respect. Some watched silently. All of them noticed him. He looked around slowly, like a man who knew the room belonged to him, even if it did not. He noticed the art on the walls, the decorations, the lighting. Then his eyes moved toward the piano, and he smiled slightly. But then his gaze stopped. It landed on the girl, standing near the wall. She felt it instantly. That strange heat on the skin when someone looks at you for too long. Her heart tightened. Her fingers pressed together. She kept her eyes down, hoping he would move on, hoping she would disappear back into the wall. He did not. He studied her openly. The simple dress, the worn shoes, the quiet posture. She stood out because she did not belong. A small smile formed on his face, not a kind one. He stepped closer. Who is she? he asked. His voice was smooth, calm, but sharp enough to make people uncomfortable. No one answered at first. "She's helping tonight," someone finally said, carefully choosing their words. "Helping," the billionaire repeated, slowly. He tasted the word like it was something new, interesting. He looked at her again, this time more directly. "Can you play the piano?" he asked suddenly. The question dropped into the room like a heavy stone. The girl froze, her fingers tightened together. Her breathing slowed. She did not expect this. Not here. Not from him. Not like this. Some guests laughed softly. Others leaned forward, curious. To them, this was entertainment. "Yes," she said quietly. Her voice was small, almost lost in the space. The billionaire laughed louder. "You," he said, pointing lightly in her direction. "That piano." His tone made it clear. He did not believe her. Or maybe he did, and that made it even funnier to him. "Go on," he said, nodding toward the piano. "Play something for us." The laughter grew. The girl felt her chest tighten. Her throat felt dry. She understood now. This was not an invitation. This was a test designed to embarrass her. Her thoughts raced. She could say no. She could walk away. But refusing would not protect her. Refusing would only bring another kind of shame. She had faced moments like this before. Moments where dignity and survival stood on opposite sides. She took a slow breath, then another. She stepped forward, walking toward the piano. Felt like walking through water. Each step was heavy. The room felt larger, brighter. Every eye followed her. Some looked bored, some excited, some almost kind, but none spoke. She reached the piano and sat down on the bench. It was smooth and cold beneath her. She lifted her hands and held them above the keys. They were shaking. The billionaire crossed his arms and waited. He looked certain, confident. This was going exactly how he expected. She closed her eyes. For a moment, the hall disappeared. She remembered late nights in a small space where the walls were thin and the world felt heavy. She remembered practicing quietly so no one would complain. She remembered playing not to impress anyone, but to release feelings she could never explain. The piano had always listened. Her finger pressed. The first key. A soft sound filled the air. Then another. The melody began. Slowly, carefully, almost shy. Some guests exchanged looks, ready to laugh, but something stopped them. The notes grew warmer, deeper. Each one carried something real, not perfection, not show, just truth. The room slowly changed. The billionaire's smile faded, just a little. The music was not fast. It was not loud. It did not try to impress. It told a story of quiet strength, of long days and longer nights, of hope that refused to disappear, no matter how heavy life became. The girl forgot the room. Her hands moved freely now. The shaking was gone. The piano responded to her touch like it recognized her, like it had been waiting. People leaned forward without realizing it. The billionaire shifted his weight. The music reached places he did not expect. It stirred something distant inside him, something he had buried under years of control, pride, and power. The song continued. No one spoke. The piano was no longer decoration. It was alive. The final note slowly faded into the air. Silence followed. Heavy, deep, honest. The girl lifted her hands from the keys. She stood. She did not look at anyone. She waited. The billionaire stared at the piano. His arms no longer crossed. For the first time that night, the room did not feel like it belonged to him, and for the first time in a very long time, he did not know what to say. The silence after the final note felt heavier than the music itself. No one moved. No one spoke. The hall that had been full of soft laughter and quiet pride now felt different. It felt smaller, closer, almost honest. The girl stood near the piano, her hands resting at her sides. Her heart was still beating fast, but her face was calm. She had played the truth. Whatever happened next was no longer in her control. The billionaire was the first to move. He lowered his arms slowly. His confident posture had changed. He did not look angry. He did not look amused. He looked unsure, and that was something no one in the room had ever seen before. He took a step forward, then another. The sound of his shoes against the floor felt loud in the silence. He stopped, a few steps away from the piano, and looked at the girl. Really looked at her this time. Not at her dress, not at her shoes, at her face, at the quiet strength in her eyes. For a moment, it seemed like he wanted to say something, but the words did not come easily. The guests watched closely. Some felt uncomfortable. Some felt moved. Some felt something they could not name. The room no longer felt like a place for showing power. It felt like a place where something real had just happened. "You learned that somewhere?" the billionaire finally asked. His voice was lower now, slower. The girl nodded gently. "I practiced when I could," she said. "At night, when it was quiet." That was all. No long explanation. No defense. Just truth. The billionaire looked away for a second. His eyes drifted back to the piano, then to the crowd. He seemed to notice them for the first time, standing there, waiting for him, waiting for the powerful man to speak. But power felt different now. "You didn't play to impress anyone," he said quietly. "You played because you meant it." She did not answer. She did not need to. A woman in the crowd wiped her eyes without realizing it. A man cleared his throat and looked down. The room was changing again, but this time in a deeper way. The billionaire took a slow breath. "I asked you to play to embarrass you," he said. The words were simple, honest, heavy. A few people shifted uncomfortably. "That was wrong," he continued, "and I see that now." The girl felt something loosen inside her chest. Not pride, not victory, relief, the kind that comes when pain is finally seen. He turned fully toward her. "You reminded me of something I forgot," he said. "Not about music, about people." The girl listened, quiet as always. "When I was younger," he went on, "I didn't belong in rooms like this either." The guests were surprised. No one had heard him speak like this before. "I was judged by how I looked, by what I didn't have. I learned to fight my way forward. Somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing others. I only saw myself." He paused. "Your music didn't ask for permission. It didn't beg. It just existed. That's rare." The girl swallowed. She had never expected this moment. She had never imagined someone like him would speak to her this way. "I don't know what tomorrow looks like for you," he said, "but I know this." He gestured toward the piano. "That talent should not stay hidden." A quiet murmur moved through the room. The billionaire turned to the guests. "This piano was meant to show off wealth," he said. "Tonight, it showed something better." He looked back at the girl. "If you want," he said carefully, "I can help you find a place to learn properly. No conditions. No expectations." The room held its breath. The girl felt tears rise, but she did not let them fall. She had learned to be careful with hope. Hope could be dangerous if handled without care. "I don't want favors," she said softly. He nodded. "I understand," he replied. "Then consider it respect." She thought for a moment. "I want to work for it," she said, "like everything else." A small smile appeared on his face. A real one this time. "Fair," he said. The tension in the room slowly lifted. Conversations did not return right away. People needed time. They had witnessed something unexpected. Something human. The girl stepped back from the piano. Someone quietly clapped, then another. Soon, the sound filled the hall. Not loud, not wild, but warm, The girl did not bow. She did not smile wide. She simply nodded once and walked away, returning to her corner. But she was not invisible anymore. People looked at her differently now, with curiosity, with respect, with something close to admiration. Later that night, when the hall began to empty, the girl finished her work as she always did. She wiped surfaces, carried items, moved quietly, but something inside her had changed, not because of applause, because she had stood her ground. The billionaire watched her from across the room as she worked. He did not interrupt. He did not call attention to her. He understood now that dignity did not need a spotlight before leaving. He stopped near her. "Thank you," he said simply. She nodded, double quotes. "Thank you for listening," she replied. He left the hall slower than he had entered it. Outside, the city lights looked the same. Cars passed. People hurried. Life moved on. But inside that building, something had shifted. Days passed. The girl returned to her routine. Early mornings, long hours, quiet nights. But she practiced more now, with purpose, with belief. Even when her fingers ached, she played. She remembered the sound of that piano, the way it felt to be heard. The billionaire kept his word, not with money handed over, not with sudden fame, but with opportunity, a place to learn, a piano she could use. Time, no announcements, no headlines, no cameras, just a door opening. She stepped through it on her own. Months later, she played again. Not in a grand hall, not for rich guests, but for herself, and for a small group who truly listened. Her music had grown stronger, deeper, not because of training alone, but because she now believed. Her story mattered, and somewhere else. A man who once thought power meant control sat quietly and listened to music more often, not to judge, not to own, but to remember what it felt like to be human.